This webinar is based on how to eliminate some of the manual work in your grant programs and also maximize the impact of these programs. So to start, I'm going to give you a little bit of background of Reviewer and why we are hosting this webinar. So here at Reviewer, we are an applicant management software. So what we do is basically we run any program that you intake any sort of application. So that might be a scholarship program, a grant program, an awards program. We also run things like contests, all sorts of things like that. Um, and the reason we are hosting this webinar is because here at Reviewer, we have been running these grant programs for years and years now. So we have ran thousands of grant programs, and we've kind of seen a lot of the best practices. And then we've seen a lot of also some things that people have been struggling with. So it's kind of our goal in this webinar today to bring those to light. So my name is Callie, and my job here at Reviewer is I do all of our marketing. So my role in this webinar is kind of just to give you guys some insights and some things that been seeing based on some of our research in the space. And then I also have Hallie here from my team, so I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah, I'm Hallie. I'm a member of the customer success team here at Reviewers. So I work one-on-one with all of our clients from the time they're onboarded into Reviewer. So building out their event, beginning to take submissions all the way up until they're done taking submissions, done with the evaluation process, and are getting ready to start for the next year. So I kind of get the inside scoop from all of our admin of where they've came from and what they struggled with and why they onboarded into Reviewer. And then how Reviewer has kind of opened up doors and solved a lot of those issues they were experiencing in platforms before. So I kind of just have an insider view of admin like you who may be using a different kind of software to run those applications and then compared to now.
Yeah, awesome. So I just want to let you guys know, as we're going through this webinar, we do have the chat open. So if you have questions as we're going, and as we're kind of demoing some things, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. And then if not, we're going to open it up at the end for a little bit of Q&A. All right, so let's get right into it. So, to start off, we just kind of want you guys to drop in the chat maybe what you're currently using to run your grant programs, whether it's several tools you're using together, like you may be using Google Forms or Jot Forms along with spreadsheets, things like that. If you're using another program, or you may be running it manually, just paper through files and email. So if you guys just want to drop in the chat for us kind of where you're at right now. Um, and while you guys are putting those in the chat, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we're at today. So this is some of what we are currently seeing people people running these grant programs using. So first, we're seeing a lot of manual operations. So that's things like spreadsheets, things like forms where then they are taking the results out of that, putting it into a spreadsheet, sending it off to the people evaluating, lots of different file droppings and things like that. And then we're also seeing a lot of people using a couple different tools to kind of hack it together rather than just using one central tool. So that maybe using things like maybe your CRM, which isn't necessarily built for it, but we have seen people who are able to manage, try to manage their programs that way. And then kind of the problems we've been seeing with some of these issues is they can be pretty slow and take a lot of time on your guys' part for the ones that are running this. And then also, what we see is the more and more applications you get, it doesn't necessarily become scalable. And if you're really looking to grow these grant programs, or if you already have pretty large number of applications, this can get pretty difficult. And then the third issue with some of these is the security of your applicants. We know some of the data and some of the things that you gather in these forms are pretty sensitive data, maybe financial data for some organizations. So just data security with that seems to be an issue that we have been seeing.
Yeah, before I get started, it looks like we had a good response in the chat. So thank you guys for letting us know what you've been using. And then that kind of will help us gear towards what we really want to focus on this webinar. Just before I get started on that, a few things that I noticed is a lot of it is with the Excel sheets and then multiple different platforms. So this webinar is probably going to hit home to a lot of you admin because you guys are the ones doing all that manual labor. We understand that this probably is not your main job running grants. It's a something that you do as a part of your job during a certain season, and then you're going to have other volunteers take time out of their day to help you with this grant season, whatever it might be. So, understanding that this isn't your main job, but it's a pretty manual and laborious process. So, that's kind of where reviewer comes in. Um, so kind of just what we're looking at right now is things that we're seeing organizations like you guys when they're managing their grant program. So the first thing is application collection, kind of what we just talked about. Whether you're getting an email for as your submission from your submitters or a basic form where you get little to no information, and the applicants are very limited by what information and what they can kind of put forward to apply for this grant. And then another thing you guys all touched on was manual file organization. So that might be in all of your Excel sheets. And then eligibility screening. So nothing is more frustrating than when you're manually compiling all of these submissions and then you get to the end and you have 50 and 20 of them are ineligible. They don't match your requirements. So that's something that we offer here at Reviewer is an eligibility screening, which is going to save your applicants time as well as you guys who are actually kind of going through that process. Initial review. So here at Reviewer, we do not allow any incomplete submissions to be submitted. So unless all required components are filled out, no one is allowed to move on, submit. And then creating summary documents and flagging compliance issues. So that kind of goes back to those Excel sheets. So instead of you guys manually going through, filling things out, inserting data as you'd like it, we can run all those reports for you here through Reviewer. And then also with the compliance issues, just to touch on that for a minute. Reviewer is very secure. We keep up to with all of our updates, making it the best platform for you guys to run all of your secure, whether that's financial information, tax documents, banking, social security, anything along those lines, that's safe to go through Reviewer. Review committee coordination. So kind of what I touched on is where this probably isn't your full-time job, but then you're also probably having other volunteers come in and help you with the review process specifically. So making sure that we have that process be as smooth and easy for them as possible because you want them to continue to come back and be a volunteer for you. So making sure that everything is in one place. It's not scattered into 8 different tabs they have to download. Their actual scorecard is going to be in the software. It's not going to be something they have to print out, turn in, scan, whatever that might be. So making everything be in one centralized place and then just making sure that it's the best experience for them. We want it to be easy, smooth, quick. We want them to be able to get their job done and then still have time to get everything else done they need to because they are donating their time to you. Decision making, so compiling your review scores instead of having to individually go through each of your 50, 100, 300, however many submissions, individually seeing who out of all of those got the highest score. We do that for you. That's a report we run. Again, kind of similar to that, the manual ranking of calculations. So ranking those applicants based on who on average got the highest score. And then the last thing that we'll touch on is grant management. So whether that's your payment processing, your award letters, follow-ups, again, all of that through reviewers so that every aspect of your grant process is going to be in one centralized location, which will make it easier for you, the submitter, and anyone else who's kind of coming in and helping you out with your grant process.
All right, so we are going to move into the first challenge we're kind of seeing right now. So we are actually going to start with the applicant experience. So these are the people that are applying to your grant programs and some of the challenges we've been seeing and where you may be losing some of your applicants along the way. So one of the first things that we're seeing is just super complex forms. Um, So that could be just really lengthy and taking a lot of their time. We are also seeing a lot of confusion with their eligibility. We oftentimes um, we will see applications come in and they don't know if they qualify for that, and they did all of the work to fill out that application, and then they didn't end up being eligible for what they had spent all that time applying for. Um, and then also not getting a lot of guidance along the way. And it's kind of just doing it on their own. We also see a lot of issues with managing their documents, uploading files. Typically, if their file is not in the correct format or the correct sizing for what they need, typically most people don't know how to necessarily change that to get it there. And then also just a lot of issues when it comes to reference collection. Um, and and yeah, so now we are going to kind of move into some of those solutions we may have.
Yeah, so this is kind of where I'm going to come in and put our point of view. So, kind of everything that Callie just touched on are issues that we are experiencing with our admin when they're coming in from using past platforms, or even if they're just coming in from just using Excel sheets and emails and Word, PDFs, whatever it might be. So a few of the things that we have to kind of combat that is the dynamic forms that adapt to organization types. So making sure that we can customize your form as much as you want. So it's going to fit with your organization. It's going to get your end goal of what you want. So every form is customizable. That's why we can run scholarships, grants, awards, all of those types, because everything is super customizable and we can kind of tailor it to be towards your organization. Real-time eligibility validation, again, kind of touched on this earlier, but making sure that no one is wasting their time filling out a grant application they're not eligible for. Frustrating on everyone's end. Contextual help and best practice examples. So there is a lot of guidance within our forms as well as a chat feature. So all of your submitters will have access to myself and the other members of the customer success team. So if they're having trouble with their form, any technological errors, we're there to help them. Which is super helpful for them. It kind of breaks that barrier of confusion of what do I do? Do I reach out to the event admin? Do I reach out to the platform? We're there and then we can guide them to who they need to reach out to. Integrated document management. So again, kind of touched on this where everything is in one place. So instead of filling out a form and then sending a document through email, documents are coming through exactly into the form. And then when it comes time for that review, they don't have to download, they can just view those documents. So keeping things secure and not having files go everywhere. Kelly? Oh, sorry. One more thing. I'm going to steal that screen share from you, Callie. And then I'm going to show you kind of a little bit of the eligibility check for our applicants. So just so it kind of can make a little bit of sense to you guys. So whether you send out that you are going live with your event in an email, or if you post it on your website, this is just kind of an example of what one of our clients do. And then from there, those applicants are going to create an account. So if they already have a reviewer account, they can use an existing account and log in and submit to your event. Otherwise, they can create an account. And then from year to year, they can keep continuing to use that account for other events held in reviewer. All of their information is going to be saved and it's going to help them while they're filling out the form. So this, for example, these first name, last name, email is going to auto populate. It's going to autofill based on that information they used during account creation. So making that process really smooth for your grantees, because again, at the end of the day, this is for them. So we want to make it the best experience possible. This is an example of a nomination. So if someone is nominating for a grant, this is kind of what it looked like. They put their information on one page and then the nominee's information on the next page. And then just kind of some more information. It just depends on how your event is filled out. And then your nominee is going to get an invite email. So they'll be invited into the event and then they'll click on it, open a little bit of description on that first page. And then this is an example of the eligibility check. So the two eligibility questions for this event is they have to turn 30 before May 31st of 2024, and they are not allowed to apply for 30 under 30 before. So if either of these were answered incorrectly, they would be taken to an ineligible page and kicked out of the form. If they are eligible, then they get to continue through the form and fill out to the best of their ability. So this is going to save from their account creation, all of that information. This is kind of an example of what one of our documents is going to look like. So we allow up to over 130 different file types. So kind of breaking that barrier of not having to have one specific file type, which is something that we run into a big issue with as people are kind of coming in, and that's one of their big things, is making sure that we allow all file types, whether that's pictures, videos, whatever it might be. And then, yeah, just kind of a little bit of an overview of them going through the form.
Right. Now we are moving into the second challenge. And this one is more focused around you guys as the admin, actually. So this is the work that you guys put in. And as we said earlier, we kind of understand that this may not be the main piece of your jobs. This might just be a small little section of what you do in your organizations. So making this process as simple, fast, and efficient is definitely our main focus. So what we want to start with, some of the issues we've been kind of seeing, as we said before, is just the manual processes. We see a lot of filling out of forms, a lot of exporting that data, moving it into spreadsheets, and then sending it out to your different reviewers. One of the main issues with most of these is obviously, it takes a while for you guys to do that. And then also, it leaves room for error. It leaves room for things to get lost when things are going through email or any type of platforms. And then it also isn't protecting the data of those applicants. And I know some programs ask for some pretty sensitive data, whether it is a personal grant, and it may be something like a household income, things like that, or if it is an organizational grant, things like tax information and stuff like that, is some stuff that we're seeing being moved around all these different programs that can cause some issues for your applicants.
Yeah, and with that, kind of piggybacking off of what Callie said, um, for some solutions for this. So automated grant workflows. So making the flow for your applicants all in one place. So again, kind of touched on this, that instead of having your submitter have to submit through email, through a form, and then send a tax document off to an organization, everything is in one place. So making it easier for that submitter is going to automatically bring your numbers up and bring your completion rates up. Real-time grant dashboard. So being able to see your submissions come in as they go, making sure that you're kind of just keeping tabs on everything that's coming into your platform, your submissions, the status of everything, just kind of making sure that you have good eyes on that. Integrated communication hub. So something that's super valuable that we do here at Reviewer is we allow all communication to go through Reviewer. So whether that be the submission confirmation email, a follow-up email, a winner's email, a status change email, whatever that might be, or a custom email, we allow those also. Everything can go through Reviewer because as soon as you start having 3 different people send out emails to all of your applicants, things get messy, things get lost. You don't know who sent what, things are going to be forgotten to be sent, which just makes it super helpful that everything can be in one place in Reviewer because we have reports of every email that has been sent out. And then also we can set up automatic emails. So making sure that those emails are sent out when you want them at the exact time. That's another super important thing that we have at Reviewer because that leaves a lot less room for error. And then the last thing is smart document organization. So categorizing your files by your program, by your grantee. We can do groups, anything along those lines. There's a lot of ways to keep every submission organized. And then I will show you guys kind of what that managed submissions page as well as the admin dashboard hub looks like. But it looks like we have a couple questions. First, I think that she got the whole slide to appear. If not, when we pull the slides back up, let us know. And then, is your data server only in the US? We actually run all a bunch of events from places all around the world. So Canada is one that we are able to serve. I'm gonna hop over. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this admin command center. So this is what the page is going to be when you open up your reviewer account into your event. This is what we call the admin dashboard. So this just gives you a really nice overview of kind of everything that's going on in your event, just at a very brief, not a very broken down version. So things like how many days left, keeping track of your timelines, how many total entries, as well as the status of each of them. Status is something that's utilized a lot at Reviewer. That's how we keep track and keep submissions organized. So being able to see the status of all your submissions is also important. And then also over here, the supplemental form. So if you're running a nominator nominee event, anytime where we have an outside user come in and fill something out for your event, we call that a supplemental event. So however that might work towards your grant application, we have eyes on that also. And then the other page that I want to touch on is the manage submissions page. So as you're kind of getting applications in and you need to look a little bit more deeply into those submissions, this is where you're going to do it. So there's search filters, so you can see if you're looking for something specific, you can find the specific submission. Otherwise, there's a great list down here. And then you can also view those submissions there. So say that you're looking, you have to go in and enter something for or change something for someone who has submitted and they don't have editing access anymore. You're able to go in and edit and view every part of their submission. So any questions and comments, you can communicate with the submitter there. And then also any just internal notes that you need about the submission. So this might be before the review process, something along those lines. However you want to use it, you're able to use it. Just know that notes are just for internal use. Attachments tab. So if you're looking to add an attachment or edit an attachment, delete, attachments tab has every attachment. If you have a large form, this is a great tab to utilize. And then you can just kind of see them there. Supplemental forms, again, for your nominator nominee event. If you do letter recommendation, whatever that might be, you have access to that right there. And then that is all I have. Callie, I'll give it back to you.
Perfect. All right. So next, we have our third challenge, which is the review process. So this is more targeted at your judges or your evaluators. So these are the people actually reviewing these submissions that you're getting. So one of the first big things that we're seeing is a little bit of bias based on demographics and locations, things like that. What we also see is there may be data that you collect in your submissions that you don't necessarily want your judges or your evaluators to see. You may want them to see some pieces of the application, but not the entire thing. And if you're just sending them over the application, they obviously would be able to see those pieces. So that's a big issue we've been seeing. And then a really big one that is pretty common is score inconsistency. So the people who are scoring your applications may have different versions of great, good, not good. So typically what we see is say me and Hallie are scoring an application. I may be a very easy judge and Hallie may be really more of a harder judge. So one thing that we see happening is the scoring isn't necessarily fair because obviously people are going to want me to review that over Hallie. And then overall, just reviewer fatigue. We know a lot of people that are reviewing these applications typically are volunteer or maybe somebody doing it after hours or just kind of doing it as a favor. So we don't want to pile a bunch of work onto them because typically they are just doing this to help out the program.
Yeah, so a few of the things I'll kind of touch on that we have solutions to those complications. So data redaction, we have full access to that right now, whether that be in your actual submission form. So contact information, where they live, any demographics, anything along those lines we can hide. And then also outside of the form, they'll be shown as a submitter's name, so you can see their name, emails. So we can also hide that. So if it applies to your grant program, we can completely hide every aspect of personal information. Value-based rubrics. So instead of doing rubrics where they're 1 through 10, again, because my version of a 7 might be very different than Callie's version of a 7, we do more of emotional based responses. So doing an exceptional versus did not meet expectations and then everything in between kind of just gives a better playing field, because our versions of exceptional and does not meet expectations are going to be a lot more similar if there's a rubric to go off of as compared to a 1 through 10 answer. Training for reviewers, we offer a lot of material training, whatever that might be, for your reviewers to help them, again, have the best experience. Collaborative review with discussion features. So kind of touching on the notes and the comments that you can have with other judges who are assigned to the same submission, as well as the actual applicant. And then score normalization, which I'll get into in a minute. Callie, I'm going to steal that screen share from you again. And I am first going to show you kind of the reviewer experience. So when we talk about reviewers, we're talking about your judges. So what it looks like for them when they judge those applications. So when they log in, they're going to have all of their submissions listed at the bottom of this page. This right here is an example of the data redaction. So you can see up around here, we have names. And then here we have redacted that data. So this judge can't see who they're evaluating. So great if it needs to be an anonymous grant evaluation. And then if we actually click into these applications, this is what it looks like. So again, one centralized hub for reviewers. On the left side, we have the entire submission form all in one place, not 8 different sheets of paper. And then on the right side, we have the actual scorecard. Based on how you do it, whether it is emotional or you do decide to do a 1 through 10 ranking, whatever that might be, we do have a total point section at the bottom so they can see how well they ranked their applicant. Different tabs up here. So we have the attachment tab, kind of similar to when we're viewing submissions. So all of your reviewers will have access to view attachments here or over on that forms page. Notes, again, kind of what we talked about. So allowing the review teams to share notes. This notes will not be shared with the competitor. Comments will be. And then supplemental forms. So if there is a nomination that they need to get input of why the nominator nominated the nominee, that will be there, or a recommendation, whatever. However you set that up, we have access to that. So your reviewers can see that. And then the other thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was that normalization report. So this is super important just to ensure that there's fair scoring, because you're running a grant. Whoever receives this grant, or the multiple people that receive these grants, chances are that's going to make a big difference in their life, in their path, whatever that might be. And so you really want to make sure that this money, your grant, is going to go towards whoever truly does deserve it. So hopping into the normalization report really quickly before we have groups. So we typically, if you guys are doing more than one grant, or if you're just doing one, we drop them into these buckets. We call them groups, just to make sure that we have all of our submissions that need to be reviewed and have kind of qualified to that round. Are going to be in one centralized place. And then here we can see the reviewer count, everything like that. Normalization report. So this is just a quick breakdown. So on your left, you're going to have all of your submissions listed. And then on the first little row, second row, you're going to have all of your judges. And then in between here, all of these columns are matching up with the judge and what score they gave each submission. From that down here, we do an average score. So we figure out the average score that each judge scores each individual. So on average, let me click through for a minute. On average, Judge Judy, gave a 23.875, and then Tony gave a 34. So that's a really big difference, which kind of shows how important this report is, because obviously I want Tony to judge my grant application because he scores a lot higher than Judge Judy. Moving on. So if my average score, if I'm Tony and my average score that I gave an applicant was 34, 34 is going to be a 1. That's going to be my baseline. Anything above a 34 is going to be above average. That is above an average score for me. And anything below that is below average. So not going to be looking at that. And then from there, You look at everyone's kind of average each submission, and then it ranks based on the submission. So who truly did have the best submission, and that's a really great way to determine who should be the winner of your grant.
All right, so now we are going to move in to our fourth challenge. Just give me 1 second. My screen's kind of freaking out here. All right, perfect. Okay, so our fourth challenge is measuring impact. So this is actually when your program is all said and done. We know at the end of the day, once these grants are given out, it's really important to your organization to see these results, to see the impact of these grant programs. Um, and to be able to bring something back to them, showing how your program changes from year to year, and the impact it's having on everyone involved. So some of the issues we've been seeing with that overall is just either no tracking or having to do all the tracking manually, which leaves a lot of room for error, and it just takes a long time on your guys' end, and just lots of challenges with reporting inconsistent data, stuff like that. Um, and that is just kind of what we have been seeing.
Yeah, so with that at Reviewer, we actually offer many, many, many reports to kind of break that barrier. So not only do we need to have reports to report back to the team, to your organization's higher ups to say, yeah, these grants really are making a difference. We need to continue to do them, but also to keep track of everyone who has applied for your grants in years past. Some people don't allow people to apply for more than once. Some people don't allow winners to reapply. And then sometimes it's just nice to have those numbers to kind compare from year to year. So a really great number to track is since we started an easier submission process, we have gotten 20% more applications each year, which is a great number to report on and say, yeah, the dollars that we're spending towards the time we're spending towards running these grants is effective. It's really making a difference. We need to continue to do that. And then also with that, just the results. So kind of going back to that evaluation process, reporting is super important because that's how you make sure that you have all of your kind of ducks in a row and you make sure that whoever is winning is the true winner, and then keeping track of every single submission and each part of it. Um, Again, just for keeping track and for records, that's super important to have that.
All right. So to kind of give you a little overview of the things that we went over today, first we kind of started out with the applicant perspective. Then we moved on to kind of you guys and your role in this, and then your judges, and then we finished with impact and just how important we know that is for your organizations. So now we just kind of want to open the floor to some questions. We can go back in the slides. Hallie can pull back up reviewer. And we can also do more personalized questions, maybe based on your program, um, and possibly just how that could look for you. Really, any questions that you have, maybe best practices, anything is open. So feel free to drop those questions.
Thank you, Lauren, for getting back. We don't actually currently offer something where the payment goes through us. We do a lot of follow-up emails of how they need to accept their payment. So whether that is filling out a few more questions, maybe like an address of where that payment needs to get sent to. But we don't actually do payment through reviewer from your guys' organization to the applicant. Yes, thank you for a great question. If you guys have a little bit of a longer-winded question that maybe you want to ask, Callie will let you guys unmute yourselves and then you can go through and ask if that's easier for you guys. Or the chat is still fine too, just more options for whatever works best for you guys.
And you can be on the lookout. We will be sending out this recording in the next couple days. So if you need to send that to another member on your team, possibly, or be able to go back and kind of look through this, we will be sending that out shortly. So thank you for attending our webinar today.